Okay, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. This is Grant Cameron, and if you're in the here and now, you're welcome too. Thank you for taking time from your valuable schedule to join me. I'm on the leading edge of a very important story again with my guest today. If you don't know, Canada is at the leading edge of inventing baseball, basketball, football, and hockey. And we're on the leading edge of another one. My guest now is Jimmy Blanchette, who's on the leading edge of, if people know I was just watching a documentary last night on this whole 137 story about the physicist with 137. People will probably know about the golden ratio, that there's all these things that sort of indicate that the world is not random, that it's very patterned, and there's all these mathematical patterns inside of nature. And what we're going to talk about today is another pattern that is below that. That's a pattern that was left by somebody in advanced intelligence, whoever. And the guy who discovered the pattern is with us today, and it goes back to the Rendlesham Forest case. My guest today is Jimmy Blanchette, who's up visiting in Quebec, and I'm always excited to watch him. A lot of people say that when I interview Jimmy, that I say "wow" more times than I say in a number of broadcasts. So, and I'm joined by my co-host today, Cindy Vole, who's sitting up in Salt Lake City, on top of Salt Lake City, waiting for her estate to be built outside of Salt Lake City at the old near the site where the Olympics were. Are they having the Olympics there again?
2034. So I'll be in Park City.
Park City. That's where they had
Yeah,
the ski slopes. I remember coming in there and seeing the ski slopes for the Olympics there. So
yeah, yeah.
welcome, and we'll catch up after the event here on some upcoming interviews. But thanks for joining me today, and thank you to Jimmy for taking time. He's a very busy guy. He's working on a book. He's working on his own work, and he's working on what we're going to be talking about today. And so welcome, Jimmy.
Thank you, Grant. Good evening. Hello, Cindy. Great to be on your show again. It's always such a pleasure to share the information. A lot going on multiple fronts. Tonight we'll be covering a bit of different subjects. Again, we'll be covering, the Rendlesham as well, as we started last time. But I do have also some kind of breaking news in the area of the 3-eye atlas, which I'm sure you've been hearing about all over the place. And so I've done my own kind of little investigation into this matter. And there's other things as well that came up regarding the Metatron's cube solution. Metatron's cube is known to be the blueprint of creation, literally. So it's sacred geometry, but how does this relate to physics? It's never been really broken. The code has never been broken. So I think I've broke something significant here. So we'll be happy to share that tonight. Also, we'll be covering some aspect to show that amazingly, the physics of black holes is encoded in the Great Pyramid of Giza to a very, very high degree of accuracy. So this is a next level because we know the Great Pyramid in Giza contains all kind of physics constants, and things like that. But now we're looking at the physics of black holes, all these constants and all these formulas that have been developed by Stephen Hawking, for instance, which are very known in the area of black holes. When we apply certain, geometric harmonics physics concept that I've, been developing since 2021 into these formulas, we get, amazing results. So we'll be covering 4 different topics tonight, and we'll end with the Rendlesham forest. I believe I've started decoding the glyph, the glyph that were, essentially uh, communicated telepathically, to Jim Peniston. So there are figures, right? There's geometric figures that contains information. So it kind of ties into my work. So we'll be covering a lot of different subjects tonight. We have 28 slides, a couple of videos as
Wow.
usual. So it should be fun.
Beautiful. Okay, just one question before you start your presentation, and that is you and I were discussing, Chris Bledsoe was talking about going to the pyramid Easter. Now the date has changed to September of next year. And I asked you about this Grant Friend, I think his name is, that was working with Chris Bledsoe. Are you still in working with them and what's going on with the pyramid and his discoveries?
Well, I'm working with, Gary Osborne, right, on different areas there. I'm not sure who you're talking about.
He works with Chris Bledsoe. He's made this discovery using this sort of light on in the side of the King's Chamber, and he discovered all this writing on the side of the wall, and one has the Taurus bull. And I was trying to get from them because as the star, the bull, Chris claims that's the main figure is the bull and has the stars. And I was trying to get them to give me whether the stars are in a triangle, because going back to your discovery, I just wondered whether you're working with these guys.
Oh, okay, okay. Well, I've worked. I mean, I've been in touch with Robert Grant, right? Robert Edward
Robert
Grant.
Grant, that's
okay,
the
yeah,
name.
yeah, that's right. Yeah, so I've not been speaking to him recently, but I've I've been in touch with him. I had we spent almost 3 hours at some point, looking at different material together, some of his discoveries and mine. So I've been part also of his research team. He had a little research group working at different things. So yeah, I've been in touch with him, not recently, but I know Grant has made some great discoveries in that area as well, in the King's Chambers and everything. So I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, beautiful. Well, I'm glad there's a bunch of you guys working on this, because it's fascinating when you sort of see it spelled out, because you don't see it, but when you see the pattern, you go, oh yeah, it's like, oh yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah,
So
yeah, it's fascinating. Yeah.
sure. So anytime you're ready, unless Cindy, if you got any question, before we start?
Well, quite honestly, every time I watch Jimmy's video, I have to watch it more than once because the information is so complex and
Yeah.
I don't have very good mathematical background. So I end up having to watch it a
Yeah.
couple more times to really
Yeah.
get the gist of it. So I don't know if I have any intelligent questions because I'm still learning. I mean,
Well,
this is very
what I'm going to try to
complex.
do after this one, I think we've done maybe 3 interviews with Jimmy, maybe even more. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take all the videos, and now with the AI, and I'm sure Jimmy's probably working with this stuff. I work with all these different AI systems, and you can actually load
The
stuff in
transcript.
there
Yeah.
and get them to say dumb this down to grade 6 and see what see if they can do it. Because it is a very important subject, and I
Yeah.
imagine a lot of people will sort of just turn it off because they can't really follow what's going on, because mathematics is not a major subject for everybody as it is for Jimmy. And you do a lot of stuff. You're an engineer, so you're doing a lot of. Are you building a pyramid, or what are you doing?
Well, I'm a chemist, right, by education, but I've been, as you know, an amateur radio operator licensed in childhood. So I've been building antennas. One of my passion was to build antenna systems,
Wow.
and I have a powerful radio station. I've been doing also moon bounce communication, bouncing radio wave off the surface of the moon, back
Yeah,
and forth to make communication on the Earth. So yeah, um, working in different, technology. I'm kind of technologist a bit. I like to work with complicated stuff, hardware and software and things like
beautiful.
that. So
Beautiful. Okay, anytime you're ready to go, you just get going and share screen. You have to ask permission,
yes,
and
so
if
let's
I
do
won't try to
this.
interrupt you, I'll just let you sit there, and here we come. Yeah, it's coming up.
All right, it's coming up. So let me pull up PowerPoint. Let me know if you can see this. All right, are you able to see it?
Yes, it's coming through clearly. Beautiful.
Perfect. All right. So today, as I said, we will be covering, and maybe let me move this window here. I don't have my double screen tonight, so I'm gonna have to do this. Give me 1 second. Okay. So we'll be covering, as I said, 4 different topics tonight. And we'll be covering the 3-eye atlas enigma, and I'm sure you've heard about it. It's been all over the news. There's a lot of fuzz, a lot of stuff being talked about it. But I looked at it from really a data-driven standpoint, from analytical standpoint, and we'll see it's pretty interesting. I never really easily fall into everything that fall for everything that's being said on the internet, because there's so much stuff. But I try to be driven by the data and facts, if you will. So we'll go through that. I've made some very interesting findings. I want to show also another thing I discovered is that clearly the physics of black holes is encoded in the Great Pyramid of Giza to a very high degree of accuracy, and that's really, again, I'll say probably the next level. We know that the Great Pyramid and the Giza and all these pyramids encodes physics constants and mathematical constants and things like that. But now we're looking at the physics of black holes and singularities, which ties to portals, right? Because it is theorized that at the center of black holes there's a singularity, and that singularity essentially acts as a portal, right? To maybe travel to different locations in our universe, galaxy universe, or even dimensions. So very, very fascinating. Also, I believe I found, at least I started to decode the Metatron's cube. The Metatron's cube is known to be the blueprint of creation, literally, where essentially that the material world we live in is encoded in this sacred geometry figure. So I'll show you how this, what I found, and also how this really ties into the geometric harmonic physics I've been working on since 2021, and it's all in the book I'm working on right now. And finally, we'll get to the Rendlesham glyph, which I believe also I decoded at least a portion of it. It's very visual. Again, all these topics we'll see tonight, I do have a lot of visuals and pictures and videos, so to make it as tangible as possible for the audience. So we'll go through that. So the first one is a 3i atlas. So there are, I'm sure you heard about it. A very famous astrophysicist, a Harvard, astrophysicist, Avi Loeb, is very involved in, as well as many other researchers. I've been pointing out that this comet, quote unquote, is so unusual, and the characteristics are so not random, that there seems to be maybe driven by an intelligence, or maybe some kind of technology, essentially. So, and one of the first arguments that Avi Loeb and scientific community essentially have been pointing out is that the 3i atlas is essentially came through our solar system in the same orbital plane as all the other planets, right? Because if we look at a picture on that slide, all the planets that are essentially evolving around the sun are like on a flat surface, right? It's like a dinner plate, essentially, right? They are not up and down. They're really aligned, if you will, within about a 5-degree bend. And they are essentially on that flat surface, right? So that orbital plane, as we call it, is very specific. So, and the 3i atlas made its entrance to, into our solar system into that same orbital plane, right? So instead of coming from the top or the bottom or some kind of random direction, it's really aligned with the orbital plane of where all the other planets essentially are evolving around the sun. So, which is very unlikely from a statistical standpoint. I do have a video, I'm going to show it in a second. And essentially, if you look at the number 2 here, essentially that trajectory from the 3i atlas seems to be very, very fine-tuned to almost like, if you will, that this comet will be, or this technology will be monitoring or recording what's happening in our solar system, right? That will be that angle that will be very favorable to do that. And the probability of this happening by chance is in the order of 0.005%, which is very, very unlikely. So this is what Avi Loeb is claiming. I do have a video I want to show to demonstrate what I'm talking about here. So I need a second. So I'm going to open up the video here so you can see the trajectory of 3i atlas in our solar system. And so in addition to, again, coming into that orbital plane, it passes very, very close to some planets like Mars, for instance, Venus, as you will see, into that trajectory, and even Jupiter, right? And Jupiter has an orbit that takes like 11.8 years to evolve around the sun, right? So the likelihood that Atlas will be passing by Mars and Venus and so close to Jupiter is so unlikely that essentially what's the enigma, right? It seems to be very fine-tuned to, to go through our solar system and to monitor and record essentially what's going on there. So let me play that video where you will see here the 3i Atlas is to the left here. And you will see that it enters our solar system. We see Mars here, we see Earth, Mercury, Venus, and then Jupiter is on the right side here. So let me play the video and then we'll talk about it in a second. So we see it's getting very close to Mars, passing by really close, passing by really close to Venus. Then it exits slowly the solar system and it's going to pass by really close to Jupiter. So this will happen in March 2026. So I don't know if you could see well the video.
Yes. Oh, yep. Pretty clear.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So I'm going to also a couple of comments I'm going to make here. So as we see, as I'm going to forward, so when it passed by Mars, really close to Mars, it was essentially late September, beginning of October, which is literally a few weeks ago. Interestingly, the U.S. government had the shutdown, and so amazingly, there was no pictures, no video, or nothing that came out from NASA or the international agencies. And, for instance, why has China or the European agencies or NASA have not recorded any data from that pass by, right? That's one of the arguments that the famous astrophysicist Michio Kaku is making. He said it's really impossible. This is really a historical event that will have been, these pictures and videos will have been all over the news, right? It will have been a very big deal from a science standpoint, will have been on covers of magazine, and yet no picture, no data, nothing, like a complete blackout, international blackout during that pass by through Mars. So it's very, very puzzling as to why that happened, right? And why Mars is because obviously there's a Mars orbiter, right? That's orbiting around Mars. So NASA has assets that could have recorded the pass by 3i Atlas. There's all kind of technology. The China have their own technology, and the European agency, the Russians, right? And yet no data, right? So it's very, very puzzling as to why that is.
But NASA shut down, you said.
Yeah, I mean, because they claim because of the government shutdown when the US, which is
Okay.
still ongoing. So, but again, there are other agencies, China, the Russians are not tied to the US government, and yet, we don't have data. So that's very strange. This all adds up.
Do they have stuff on Mars? They don't have stuff on Mars, do they? Russia and China?
I don't think China. I think Russia. I mean, they still have assets, that could have taken, data, and they can do all kind of observations and things like that. But it's been kind of an international blackout, almost like coordinated, and that's the point that Michio Kaku is making, which is very valid. So it's very, very puzzling. And we see throughout this passage that 3i Atlas, it's passing by. I mean, we see at that point here, it's getting closer a bit to Earth, right? The Earth is in blue here.
Yeah.
So, and we'll talk about it. This is very significant. That gets into my research. And then it passes by Jupiter, which is, again, Jupiter evolves around the sun. It takes 11.8 years for Jupiter to do a full circle around the sun. So what is the likelihood, right, that 3i Atlas is just passing by so closely? This is very, very all unlikely, unlikely things, right? So let me get back to the slide here. So the other thing that Avi Loeb is making another point is that this object seems to be too large to for expected interstellar population of object coming through our solar system. Lack of detectable cometary outgassing, that which is typical from comets. Talk about the solar conjunction, that when it passed by the sun, the timing essentially of the approach to the sun, is such that the Earth will be on the opposite side, right? So it's all very unusual things. It talks about possible non-gravitational acceleration that has been observed, which is very uncharacteristic and very strange. And also emission not dominated by the nucleus, not the dust, or it just looks like this thing is self-illuminating. So it's very strange. So I did some research, and obviously I looked at it from my own perspective using the geometric harmonics physics I've been working on since 2021, and I found something really, really remarkable. And it's very strange because Avi Loeb and all these researchers have not, pointed that out, or seems to have not even noticed that. But I noticed that on the very day, the exact day that the 3I Atlas will be the closest to Earth, which will be on December 19th of this year, 2025.
Okay.
On that exact day, there's going to be a very, very rare planetary alignment in our solar system that, happens every 50 million years, literally. I mean, it's
Wow.
very, very rare alignment. So the likelihood that this alignment is just happening on the exact day that the 3I Atlas will be the closest to Earth is just like chance in the many millions, right? And I'm very puzzled as to why these researchers have not noticed that. But what we see here, the alignment in question, so we see planet Earth to the left. We have essentially, whoops, go back here. We have at the bottom Jupiter, which essentially will be to the back of the Earth, right? On the back side. And in front of the Earth, we're going to have an alignment with the Moon, the Sun. It's going to have Mars also pretty well aligned. Venus, Mercury is a bit more to the right side. And Sagittarius A, which is the center of our galaxy, the Milky Way. The reason why that is important is that at the center of our galaxy, the Milky Way, there's a massive black holes.
Yeah.
And right, so all these planets and stars and center of the Milky Way have a very significant, or potential significant gravitational impact. If we look at the Moon alone, right, we know that the tide on planet Earth, what's responsible for the tides is the Moon, right? The gravitational impact of the Moon is lifting and moving hundreds of trillions of tons of water, right, through the tides movements. So the gravitational impact of the Moon is very significant. But now, not only the Earth is going to be aligned with the Moon, it's going to be aligned with the Sun, which has a massive gravitational impact as well, plus all these other planets that are lined up. So, so there's something, I'm going to link that very in a few minutes here to the famous Carrington event that happened in 1859 that produced the largest super solar storm ever recorded in our history. So I'm going to talk about that in a second. So, but on that day of December 19th of this year, when this alignment is happening, that's going to coincide with the day that, again, Atlas is the closest to Earth. In addition to that, and that to me is just over the top, is that the distance between the 3I Atlas itself in terms of distance, the distance to the Earth, between 3I Atlas and the Earth, the distance between 3I Atlas and the Sun and the Moon matches these harmonics of creation I've been talking about since 2021. So if we look at the bottom here, we see actually the actual distance in millions of nautical miles between 3I Atlas and the Earth, right? So matches harmonic 144 at 99.2%. So the distance between 3I Atlas and the Earth on December 19, 2025 will be exactly 145.2 million nautical miles. Again, matching really closely harmonic 144. And this number may change a little bit because there's, the trajectory of 3I Atlas is known, but, with there's some recalculations, and corrections being made as it goes along. So this numbers actually may change and get even closer to harmonic 144. So again, we see that distance 3I Atlas, the Earth is 144 with the Moon. And amazingly, that between the 3I Atlas on that day of December 19, 2025, and the Sun will be equivalent to harmonic 432 squared. Or that number we see at the bottom, 186.8 at 99.9%. I mean, all these numbers are all above 99% in terms of accuracy with what I'm talking about. The likelihood of that happening, again, with this alignment, which happens once every many million years, is just so unlikely. If we add it to the fact that 3I Atlas, as I said, is entered our solar system in the same plane as all the planets, you know, and it's like seems to be very fine-tuned to scroll and get really close to many of our planets in our solar system and so on. Is just statistically speaking, just so unlikely that, you know, that's what essentially a lot of it is driving a lot of the conspiracies around it. But in my case, it's, you know, ties into my work that I've been talking about. And, you know, I've been showing these slides for over 4 years now. I think, Grant, we probably had 5 or 6 shows together. I have to count them, but, you know, I've been showing these harmonics of creation. The product of harmonic 144 golden ratio and 432 equals to unity, the number 1, right? Which, you know, one could essentially equate that to source creation, or, you know, the Big Bang, if you will, right? That all that is essentially our universe, the division of the one essentially into these harmonics. And, you know, we talked about, and I showed that in, you know, many shows ago again, that these harmonics are encoded in the very dimension of the Great Plain of Giza, for instance, the same harmonic, 144 golden ratio, 432. And so essentially, that is what is encoded in this distance on December 2025, between Freya Atlas and the Sun, the Moon, and the Earth. So that's really, really fascinating.
Is this the first time you presented this?
Yes, this is new material.
So hopefully they'll, I'm sure there's people who know Avi, and somebody will send this to them and tell them to check it out. It's maybe this is the day when everybody pays attention.
Yep. and one thing I want to mention about this distance, right? So I showed again that this on that day, so of December 19, 2025, the distance between the Sun and the 3i Atlas will be 186.8 million nautical miles, right? Again, that distance changes every hours, right? But it's going to get to that number on that very day. And so what I want to show here, you may recall this harmonic 186.8 just happens to be, right, the distance between the Royal Air Force Base, Bentwaters Royal Air Force Base, where the Rendlesham, you know, forest incident occurred, and the Great Plain of Giza. The distance is exactly 1,868 nautical miles, which is exactly that number that comes back again.
That's
amazing.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And that, again, also was matching the distance between the prime meridian at the equator, right? The longitudinal distance between the prime meridian and the Great Plain is also 1,868 nautical miles, right? So that harmonic is really, really important, which is equivalent to 432 square at 99.9%. The accuracy is just stunning. And I had also shown, when I showed the solution I proposed for the explanation of physical matter, dark matter, and dark energy, right, which remains some of the greatest mysteries in our science, right? They cannot explain where dark matter is coming from, this dark energy that's driving the expansion of the universe. You know, I proposed this primordial fractalization mechanism. We see the bottom left here, essentially the division of the unity, right, the one, source creation, dividing itself through the golden ratio principle. Golden ratio being the principle of division we see everywhere in nature, right? That gives fractality in everything that is in our universe and nature. Essentially, when we funnel that energy through the simplest three-dimensional structure that exists, which is a tetrahedron, the energy at the center here of this inscribed sphere is exactly 186.8, right? This is exactly that harmonic again, right? That's what gives us essentially give birth to our universe, and the dark matter, dark energy explains the expansion of the universe and so on. So it's so precise that, you know, again, very, very unlikely these are all coincidence. That just statistically speaking doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Now, the other thing I wanted to mention, I know you had requested that we covered that briefly when we talked last time. So I showed that this alignment, when 3i Atlas will be closest to Earth, again on December 19, 2025, this very rare alignment of planets and the Sun and the Sagittarius A, the center of our Milky Way. While in 1859, August 27, 1859, there was a similar very, very rare alignment that occurred, and I'm sure I'm showing it here on that picture, which amazingly just happened to coincide with the famous Carrington event. And the Carrington event essentially was the strongest solar storm ever recorded in our history, in human history. That peaked on September 1st and 2nd, 1859, but the first actually storm that was recorded by Carrington itself, was an astronomer, was actually on August 28th, 1859. And so he recorded, the solar storm. But what people have not noticed is that on that very day, when I looked at it, and I use a software online, everybody can access the software or this online tool called the Sky, and you can essentially program the date and the time. And it's going to show, where the planets were located in our solar system and everything. And so I went back in 1859, and I noticed that on August 27th, essentially, the very day before the major solar storm was recorded, we had this planetary alignment, which happens only once every many million years, right? So what this suggests is that the solar storm could have been actually triggered by this planetary alignment, right? All this gravitational effect of these planets in our solar system onto the sun, right, will have been sufficient essentially to eject a massive burst of plasma, a coronal mass ejection from the sun towards the Earth. And what we see here on the right side, the solar storm was so powerful at the time that even the telegraphic, in 1859, there was no technology, but they were using Morse code, right, to communicate. So they're very, primitive telegraphic stations. Well, the electromagnetic field that was induced by the solar storm was so strong that it set on fires these telegraphic lines, and it just really destroyed everything. They could see aurora and northern lights essentially to the very, very low latitude all over the planet. And it is said, speculated, that if the same solar storm will happen today, it will destroy essentially all the power grid capacity on the planet Earth. So all the power grids will be essentially disabled, and it will take many months before this power grid will be essentially built back up. So what that means is that with no power grid, no electricity, that means that there's no pump, right, to pump the water to the cities. From there, everything goes down the drain, obviously. And so we're looking at a planetary catastrophe, potentially, right? So if the same storm will happen today, that would be a major, major, major problem. And not only that, these electromagnetic pulse, not only they will bring down the power grid, but also all the electronics, the chips, right, that are electronic chips that are in the computers and iPhone and everywhere, in cars, right? The cars, they all have computers today, will be also disabled. So essentially, the humanity, the technology will come to a grind, if something like that will happen again today, and will be catastrophe. So the reason I'm mentioning this is that on December 19th, 2025, on the day that Three Atlas will be the closest to Earth, we have a similar planetary alignment that's going to take place.
Wow.
So this is very, very significant. So, from there, some could speculate, and I do not have specific opinion about it, but if we speculate, if some of these, if Three Atlas is actually a technology, as some of these astrophysicists, well-known Harvard astrophysicists like Avilov are, speculating, well, is this technology going to be passing by to actually neutralize a possible solar storm that will have catastrophic consequences for planet Earth?
That's interesting. Wow. I'm looking forward to December 19th now. Because they even talk about this thing about, war in space, where if you take out a satellite, it'll take out all the shrapnel, take out the rest of the satellites, and everything shuts down because of the banks, that everything is wired through there, and everything is wired. So it's something we'll have to maybe ask the channelers whether they see this coming, in terms of, because it's not that far away.
Oh yeah, and actually they all again, there's so much stuff on the internet, but there are channelers that are saying that this is a technology actually that's broadcasting and will be broadcasting as it gets closer to Earth frequencies to uplift, the frequency of humanity and the humans.
Well,
and so there's all kind of theories about it, but I'm looking at it from a mathematical data driven, because what I'm showing here is not speculation, right? This alignment is going to take place. Anyone can go on the internet, go on the Sky online tool, punch in December 19, 2025, you'll see this alignment, right? It's just a fact.
Wow. Well, you may get a lot of interviews coming up to that date.
And I want to point out also something really interesting. So what we see here to the left is, again, the Carrington event that I just talked about.
Yeah.
There was also another solar storm in 1870, in October 1870. They call it the Great Solar Storm. So there was also a big solar storm corresponding again with a planetary alignment. And I don't know why nobody seemed to have made the connection there. But again, if you looked at it, there was a planetary alignment, between the sun, the moon, Venus, Mercury. And it happened in 1870. So I looked now, this is the past, obviously, but I looked into the future, right?
Yeah.
And so, okay, is there something coming up in the future? So I looked up until the year 2500. So I went like many hundreds of years ahead in the future. And what I found is actually on December 21st, 2033, which we see to the right side here, there's going to be another alignment that's going to be extremely rare, involving the sun, the moon. Again, these are significant. The sun and the moon are probably the most significant because they have the most massive gravitational impact on planet Earth, right? As I said, the moon is responsible for the tides. The sun, obviously, right? That has also a massive impact on planet Earth from a gravitational standpoint. So on December 21st, 2033, and I should mention too that December 21st is the day of the winter solstice. And the winter solstice, we saw a lot in mythology, right? That the solstice are very important for some reason, but it just happens that on the winter solstice, December 21st is the day that the sun is the closest to planet Earth, meaning that the gravitational effect or impact of the sun is at its maximum, attends its peak every winter solstice. So it's very interesting that this alignment on 2023 happens to happen exactly on December 21st, when the sun will be closest to the Earth, and the moon also will be aligned, which has massive gravitational impact. So, and in addition to that, again, the winter solstice is actually also the timing where, again, we have this alignment with Sagittarius A, which is the center of our galaxy, which contains these massive black holes, right, that has millions of stars inside. And so, again, a very significant date here. So now we need to ask ourselves, is there something significant that's going to take place also in 2033? We hear all kinds of theories about 2030 to 2035. There's, and so, again, from my standpoint, I'm looking at it from a data-driven standpoint of what's going to take place. Well, this is where things are coming together in a very, very interesting way. If we look on this slide here, I'm sure you heard about the Mayan calendar, right? In the famous December 21st, 2012, to the left here, right? Which corresponded to the end of the Mayan, of the 13 Bakhtums, the long count Mayan calendar came to an end, to the end of that cycle on December 21st, 2012, which is speculated to have been the beginning of a new era, right? The beginning of the golden age. So I had this information came to me to connect these things together, and I realized something really amazing was happening actually. So December 21st, 2012. Now, we talked about earlier about the day that 3i Atlas will be closest to Earth on December 19, 2025, right? This is the alignment we see in the middle here. We talked about that minutes ago. And now I've just mentioned that the next alignment is going to happen on December 21st, 2033. So if you look, all these dates, first of all, corresponds to the winter solstice, right? December 21st, December 19th, December 21st. This is all when the sun is the closest to the Earth, interestingly. And the time span between the 2012, December 21st, 2012, and December 19th, 2025, when 3i Atlas is the closest to Earth, is exactly 13 years, right? And between the December 19, 2025, and the next planetary alignment, December 21st, 2033, it's exactly 8 years. When we ratio 13 years over 8 years, we see to the right side, get exactly the golden ratio at 99.6% of accuracy. This is unbelievable. So it's mathematical, but these alignments are extremely rare, which correspond to the alignment, the same similar alignment we saw also during the Carrington event, right? That had this major solar storm. So it's mathematical, and its base clearly involve the celestial alignment, and even ties into this Mayan calendar of 2012, which is really, really fascinating. So it's really hard to believe these are just all accidents.
Yeah.
Really.
No
You know,
kidding. Yeah. Okay. That's
it-
wonderful discovery.
if we combine the statistical, I mean, even each of these alignments are extremely rare. I said it's once in a million years, and we tie this that all this mathematics is involved in there, and we combine all these. I mean, it's just, to me, it says something, right? There's a message behind this that's really significant, and it's possible that 3i Atlas, if it's a technology, indeed a technology, may be passing by closest to Earth for us to realize that and look at these numbers and make these connections.
Yeah.
And maybe we need to connect the dots here on these things, right? Because if indeed these planetary alignments may cause planetary changes or even a pole shift, then we need to know about it, right? We need to connect the dots there. So maybe there's something, behind a message in a bottle, if you will.
Yeah. Wow.
All right. So we'll go to topic number 2. Again, I had not this, sometimes I do my work and all this information comes through, and I had not planned to work on this, but since the information is there and I made some calculation, it works out perfectly. Then I just make slides and I just, share the results. So that's what I'm going through now. The next topic is about the physics of black holes that is encoded in a very, very accurate way in the Great Pyramid of Giza. And this is something that's really, really fascinating. As we said, the black holes are, they are at the center of black holes is a singularity, and it's theorized that the singularity essentially give access to it's a portal, essentially portal to other dimensions or other point in our universe, right? Can act as this bridge, if you will. There's Einstein-Rosenberg bridge.
Yeah.
So what I did here, I looked at the major formulas that are involved in the physics of black hole, and no one needs to be mathematicians here, but we just need to just realize that these black holes, essentially the characteristics of black holes, are expressed through formulas. And for instance, if we look at the radius of black holes, and and ties into the event horizons of black holes, I mean, all these were connected to the discoveries of Carl Schwarzschild in 1906. So Carl Schwarzschild discovered the formula to calculate the size of black holes, essentially based on their mass. And so he's very famous for non-charged, non-polarized black holes. So Carl Schwarzschild is really the father of these formulas. And at the bottom here, I'm sure most people have heard about Stephen Hawking. It's very known, made major discovery in the 70s, where he developed formulas to calculate the actual temperatures of black holes, the entropy, the amount of information essentially that can be encoded, if you will, or captured into black holes. So all these formulas we see here, allows to calculate these different characteristics of black holes. So interestingly, something that's interesting about these formulas is that all these numbers we see, all these letters are constants, right? The G is the gravitational constants, C is the speed of light, right? These are constants. There's nothing we can do about it. It's just constants. There's one variable, however, is the energy, right? Or the mass of these black holes. So that is the variable that will determine the radius of the black holes, the event horizon, the temperature, the entropy. And the geometric harmonics physics framework that I developed, I showed that the volume of space equal energy, right? But we know that space is not empty. Space is actually full of energy. So what I ended up doing essentially is to calculate the volume of space contained within the Great Pyramid of Giza. So simply by using an online calculator and calculating essentially or inputting the dimension of the Great Pyramid of Giza itself, we can calculate its volume, right? Its internal volume expressed in cubic nautical miles. I was always using geometric harmonic units. And we see that number to the bottom right here, this 408,864, it corresponds to the volume of the Great Pyramid of Giza, therefore the energy that is stored within the structure of the Great Pyramid of Giza. Having this number, right, I could essentially feed back these numbers into these formulas, these black holes formulas that were developed by Stephen Hawking and Carl Schwarzschild, inputting that number. And the result that came out, Grant and Cindy, was just
It's just a
Stunning.
chance, Jimmy. It's a chance.
It's just chance.
Unbelievable.
So,
Unbelievable.
so
Unbelievable.
it's amazing, right? I mean, we
Yeah.
see now the volume of the black hole. Again, in putting that volume of energy, the great pyramid correspond to the golden ratio at 99.6% of accuracy. The diameter of the black hole corresponding to the black hole within the great pyramid, again, using that energy, is correspond to pi.
Yeah.
And I need to mention something. I made pi at 99.99% of accuracy. And we know that pi is the symbol for portals. And we see it encoded all over the world in ancient sacred sites and structures, like in the Torii Gate in Japan. We see that. Look at that. I mean, this is pi, right? in Tonga, even in Stonehenge, all these rocks, right? These formations, all in the shape or in the configuration of the mathematical constant pi. Chichen Itza in Mexico, the Temple of Apollo. Well, it's not only figurative, it's not only symbols, but it's actually mathematical. And we see that essentially the diameter of the corresponding black hole or mini black hole inside the Great Pyramid matches that pi constant here at 99.99% of accuracy. This is so stunning. It's just unbelievable.
Yeah, stunning. Yeah. Wow.
Even the Hawking temperature gave us 2 pi. I don't know why, right? What exactly that means, what the implications are, but that is what we get. And at 99.99% of accuracy, again, it's just amazing. And the event horizon area is pi to the power of 3 or cube. And then finally, the entropy, which is a measure of the information that's encoded in the black hole, gives us 2 times the golden ratio at 99.5%. So there's something amazing about that too, is because if you look at it, for these figures to manifest themselves, golden ratio pi, 2 pi, and 2 golden ratio, there's only one value of energy that can give us these value.
That's right.
It's exactly the volume energy matching the volume energy of the Great Pyramid of Giza. That's only that number that can generate all these accurate numbers.
Wow. Stunning, Jimmy. Good work.
Amazing.
So this is telling us essentially that the physics of black hole is encoded in that number. So essentially the reason why the Great Pyramid of Giza was built with these dimensions was to contain that volume energy. And one could theorize at this point that clearly there is a macro singularity at the center of that pyramid, right? That gives access to other dimensions or any other point in space potentially.
Yeah.
So
wow.
it's fascinating. So I call it a pentaconvergence, right? Because there are 5 different features here of black holes that are, golden ratio, proportion, and pi. So we have that number. The volume energy gives this number, and it's like we have 5 different features of black holes that, are revealed by the volume energy of the Great Pyramid of Giza. So it's fascinating.
Well, I hope people share this around so that the people that are in the know or people who can pick up the significance will start working on this.
Yep, absolutely. Okay, third topic out of 4. We get something very interesting here. I mean, I'm sure you all heard and seen this Metatron's cube, the symbol.
Yeah.
Metatron is celebrated as the blueprint of creation, right? It's the single geometric figure from which, first of all the Platonic solids that are known, like, the tetrahedron, the cube, dodecahedron, which Plato said, was producing the universe, the icosahedron. So all these 5 Platonic solids essentially are contained in that structure. And it's interesting because what we're looking at here is a 2-dimensional structure, right? It's a flat surface.
Yeah.
But if you look at the lines, you can recreate a 3-dimensional visualization of these 5 Platonic solids. So it's very interesting. So we go from a 2-dimensional picture that reveals a 3-dimensional structures, tetrahedron, and as I said, cube, and so on. So again, Metatron's cube is really unique. It also contains the famous vector equilibrium that was revealed by Buckminster Fuller, which is very known.
Yeah.
It's essentially that figure of sacred geometry that encodes the architecture of the universe itself. Now, one thing about the sacred geometry is that we see these figures, we see these signs, but we could never connect it to our actual quantum physics or physics, right? It's like We had this disconnect, right? We've not been able to break through it. And I think I've broken at least part of the code here. So if we look at the Metatrons cube, so I essentially just applied the very same principle we've been talking about for a few years now. So if we look to the left side, right, the Metatrons cube contains 13 spheres, right? We count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 spheres.
Yeah.
So essentially, I represented these spheres here. We see them, they all lined up. There are 13 spheres here. So, and I essentially just charge them with the energy of 1 over golden ratio, right? Because we know, as I showed here, the division of the unity or the division of source creation, we see it at the bottom right here, right? The division of the unity over golden ratio is essentially the division of source creation, right? Through the golden ratio principle. And that's how I could explain the dark matter, physical, regular matter and dark energy, the expansion of the universe. So this very basic principle of the division of source creation, essentially. So I charge or infuse that energy, I'm going back here, into each of these spheres, like 13 spheres containing that energy, right? And then scaled up by harmonic 142, which we see always. And we end up with that energy equivalent to 347.088.
Okay.
Now, that's interesting because if we have a sphere that has a volume energy equivalent to that number, 347.88, the diameter of that sphere, Grant, will be matching exactly 1 Planck length. And 1 Planck length is the fundamental of quantum physics, right? The Planck length is the fundamental or the smallest oscillation of energy that can exist at the quantum scale. So it's fascinating because these 13 spheres from the Metatrons cube, now we convert, essentially turn this sacred geometry into quantum physics, right? We create that connections to our quantum physics to the Planck length. And moreover, and that's just one aspect of it, if we convert that energy into matter, right, using E equal mc squared, right, on top here, we know that Einstein came up with that formula, E equal mc squared, which is the equivalency between energy and matter. So if we take that number, E equal mc squared, and I actually could do that on the screen if I can find my calculator. I want to show you that I'm not making these numbers random here. So let's do it. So we're going to take 347.088, the energy, right, coming from these 13 spheres of Metatrons cube. And this is the energy, right? So if we want to calculate the matter equivalent, the amount of mass, we divide by c squared, which is the speed of light squared. In our case, it's 1 harmonic 432 squared. Oh, let me go back here because I did the, divided by harmonic 144, the speed of light harmonic squared I've been talking about for a long time. We get exactly 16738,421. This is the number in blue here, we see, 1.6738421. Well, amazingly, that mass, if you compare to the red number is the average mass of the subatomic particles making up the material world we live in. So if you look in the physics books in science, the average mass of the proton and neutron, essentially making up our periodic table of elements, the average mass is 1.6737747. So look, compared to these two numbers, the match is 99.995% match. This is stunning. So this is the solution. This is what I'm proposing as a solution, showing essentially the connection between this famous Metatrons cube, which is said to be the blueprint of creation. But when we use the geometric harmonics physics framework I've been developing since 2021 and apply these basic principles using general relativity and so on, we can calculate the matter or the mass equivalent to these 13 spheres, and we get essentially the average mass of the subatomic particles making up our material world.
Unbelievable.
In the match, again, at 99.995%. This is stunning. In addition, and we can go even further, and this is to me like so mind-blowing to even look at. Now, if we take that volume energy of 347.088 and we scale it up by 1 golden ratio, essentially we multiply it by 1 golden ratio, and I'm going to do it on the screen because it's really simple, right? So let me take the calculator here. Okay, so let's take that number again, 347.088. times 1 golden ratio, 1.618, right? I'm going to add some decimal. We get 561.6, right? You see
Yeah.
that number, right?
Yeah.
Well, this is the number I'm showing up here. Well, it just happens to be that if you look in the science books, go on ChatGPT and ask the best estimated volume of our universe in cubic nautical miles, you're going to get 561.4. So we have a match with the volume for universe at 99.96%.
Wow.
So the Metatrons cube, in other words, the Metatrons cube seems to be encoding the physical reality we live in, the mass of matter, right? The subatomic particles that makes up some material world. And you scale it up by one golden ratio when you get the volume of our universe.
Yeah.
So this is the solution. Yeah, this is the solution I'm proposing, essentially to connect the sacred geometry Metatrons to our material reality and even our universe we live in.
Wow.
All right, topic number 4, and this is the last one. So I want to use this opportunity to promote a bit the book of my good friend Gary Osborne. I highly recommend it, The Rendlesham Enigma. Gary has done fantastic work in the field in so many areas that I couldn't even describe here. But again, I encourage everyone to get the book and read through it.
And he's working on 2 more books, correct?
Yes, that's right. He's very busy.
Yeah.
So one of the things that came out of the Rendlesham Forest binary code message, right, that was communicated from the craft to Jim Peniston, were these glyphs, right? This kind of geometric figures, these glyphs, and we see it actually on the cover of the book here. And so, I'm going to focus specifically on this one here, this circle, which has kind of this triangle and small circles around.
Mm-hmm.
So amazingly, and you may remember, Grant, maybe two and a half years ago, I proposed a solution to the fine structure constant. And the fine structure constant is a very enigmatic. It's still one of the greatest mysteries in all science, that they do not know where these constants come from. They don't know what's the mechanism behind this constant, but that constant is necessary to make the universe work, right? All the electromagnetic interactions in the universe, the light, the production of light, these light interactions that we see, in the atoms and so on, are regulated by this fine structure constant. They need to apply this constant, otherwise the universe breaks down, right? To make the universe works, you need that constant. And which is that number you mentioned at the very beginning, right? It's 137, right? At the bottom here, the inverse of the fine structure constant is 137 with some decimals. So, and I proposed about 2.5 years ago, using again the very same principle I've been talking about earlier, right? The division of the unity to the left side here over the golden ratio. We funnel that energy through the simplest 3-dimensional structure in our universe, which is the tetrahedron.
Yeah.
And we get these numbers here, right? And these numbers, you get a 2 Planck length as the side length for this tetrahedron and so on. I'm not going to cover all that in detail again. But essentially, what I came up with, the solution was the fine structure constant essentially was applying the speed of light harmonic in terms of degrees, 144 degrees, over a 360-degree circle, was essentially the ratio of the fine structure constant times the circle circumference, right? So it's all geometry based on the quantum physics on the Planck length. And I have the little equation here. The formula can be simplified here to the bottom right. You see, so we see on the right side, 144 over 360 degrees is equivalent to that circle circumference times the fine structure constant. And when we apply this solution based on this mechanism that I'm showing here, we get the fine structure constant exactly at 99.97% of accuracy. So I believe, this is my hypothesis, that the fine structure constant is based on that. This is where it's coming from. So that is the secret, essentially, or the answer or the solution to the fine structure constant. Now, interestingly, look at this circle here, okay? And look at that angle, specifically this 144 degrees, right, through a circle. And now look at these glyphs from... Look at the center here. Look at the 144 degrees and look at this glyph from the Rendlesham Forest. This is the same. This is the same angle.
Yeah.
And I have reproduced the triangle here to be more representative. So if you look to the bottom, completely bottom right here, which again emerges from the solution I proposed to the fine structure constant, matches these glyphs of this Rendlesham forest glyphs really, really nicely.
Wow.
So essentially, I believe these glyphs essentially is the solution to the fine structure constant. And this matches what I was showing here, right? This circle with 144 degrees, essentially. This is containing that glyphs here. See? Can you see it well?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Wow. And then the coincidence, I was watching about the fine structure constant last night. It's like kind of weird.
So and Gary, the work is Gary Osborne. I mean, Gary Osborne demonstrated actually that the fine structure constant was encoded in the Rendlesham Forest Code to a very high degree of accuracy. And he used a different approach than I did, but we get to the same answer essentially. And so it kind of makes sense that these glyphs or hieroglyphs from the Rendlesham Forest enigma encodes the fine structure constant, because Gary proved that mathematically, and I did the same. I proved that through that mechanism here that I proposed. So it's really fascinating. So I think this is the answer to that glyph specifically. I do not know about the other ones that are here at the bottom, but this one came to me when I looked at it. It hit me like a ton of bricks. I said, "Holy cow! This is the same circle, the same angle I've been talking about for 2.5 years." You know.
Wow.
And I'm going to end up with a short video, which I've shown. It's about, I think, a minute, 30 second, a minute video of the video from my good friend Linda, where we see these craft essentially producing these geometrical forms of figures, during their passage. And she was kind of directed essentially to record it. So she has this footage, which is stunning. But I want you to pay attention to the footage, because this ties into exactly what we've talked about. So let me just play the
Can you
video.
explain who she is first?
Yes. So Linda is an experiencer. She's a C5 experiencer. She's had a lot of. Let me get back to her here. I mentioned that in a previous interviews, but she's an experiencer, and she's very connected, and she had many, again, experiences with non-human intelligences. And in the video actually dates from 2016. And on that date, I'm making a long story short, and she would be best for her to actually tell her story. But in a nutshell, what happened, she made a request for a V-shaped sighting to occur, a sighting of a V-shape. And on a given night, she was kind of directed or inspired to go in a backyard. She has a night vision camera. I have the same camera at home actually. And at the precise moment, she was directed essentially to look at the, in the sky and start recording.
Wow.
And what unfolds next are these 5 craft essentially, or lights that are, produce different forms, but clearly manifest the V shape that she had requested very clearly, and other things that are encoded. And that's why I kind of broke the code on that, because these sightings are always full of information, right? They encode information, important information. And this is what we're going to see here. So what we see is the video at the moment that she started recording. She was directed to record, and we see what the craft did. So let me just play it, and we're going to talk about it in a second.
Oh yeah, no, I remember.
Okay. So
And now I
this,
remember it.
yeah, this is a stunning video. And I had showed, that this actually, these figures that these non-human intelligence are producing contains these harmonics of creation I've been talking about. And more specifically, if you look at the angle of this V shape that she requested,
Yeah.
right? If we zoom in, we can draw a very nice baseline at the bottom here. And these two other graphs, if we do an average line here, we get
Yeah.
exactly 144 degrees. Okay. Now, 144 degrees happens to be the solution to the fine structure constant.
Yeah.
Which is encoded in that glyphs of the Rendlesham forest as well.
Fascinating. Did you hear that this audio has just been recovered with Jesse Marcel Sr., the guy who found the Roswell wreckage? There's an interview that was done many, many decades ago with him, and he talked about the fact that nobody knew this, that the month before the Roswell crash, he was going out to the base, and there was a formation of 5 UFOs flying through the sky.
Wow.
I didn't know
And
that.
he never made it public until it was in this interview. And you start looking at that thing about, I question, why would they fly in formation like the Skywatcher if you know their stuff? It's they had some with 21 and they're all in formation. And it's like, what do you think's going on here? Do you think they're actually going anywhere, or is this all symbolic? And that's, I think, the importance of what you're doing is it's all hidden in plain sight. And everybody looks at it as like a UFO sighting, and they don't realize it's actually code that if you actually study it carefully, it's actually giving you a message, and it's tying all this stuff together, how the whole universe actually works, and we're sort of engaged in what it looks like and what color it is and stuff like this, and just entertainment. And we go from one UFO sighting to another, and we're sort of missing the whole point of what's going on.
Exactly. That's exactly what seems to be the case. It's almost really like what I'm seeing is that they gave us the answer. They right, as you said,
Yeah.
plain sight right in front of us. They are waiting that our consciousness evolves to that
Yeah.
degree where we can actually understand
Sure.
what they are telling us. And
Yeah.
that's what it is. It's evolution of our consciousness, right? To get to
Yeah.
that point where we can understand and speak the same language that they do.
Yeah.
And
they really don't care when you figure it out. It's almost like the pyramid. It's been there for thousands of years before people finally figured out what the code was. And that code has always been there, but your consciousness has to be at a level that you can actually sort of understand what's going on. And quantum physics is, not even like it's 100 years old. And now we're starting to see how everything ties in together, and that the world just gets more complex and yet more eloquent in terms of the fact that the mathematics is basically, as I say in science, is not explaining anything, it's describing stuff. This applies to this, and this connects to this, and all this sort of stuff. But you still don't know how it's done, like how it all was all put together. And it's just amazing. And I congratulate you on, and I feel lucky actually being on the leading edge of watching your research as it unfolds, because to me it was extremely important. And then, I mean, you know the story that I sent it to a Nobel Prize winning guy, and that's when he said, "Well, I've got time to watch 2 hour video." And then so we sent a couple of slides, and he said, "Well, the guy looks like a bit of a nutcase. People are just sort of writing it off because they're just not there. They may be on one end, like this guy was a Nobel Prize and he was into parapsychology and ESP and stuff, but when it came to other things, his mind was still blocked." And so that's where you see that it may be a number of years before people figure it out and pick up your stuff and apply that, and start to understand that this phenomenon is not just a bunch of aliens got lost in space. This is a little more complex than that.
Oh yeah, totally. I mean, unfortunately, I mean, I don't think we can trust that the mainstream science or these famous researcher will really accept the fact that maybe what they've been working on for 30-40 years has been not accurate, or maybe a smaller picture of something much bigger, right? They have grants, they've been working on their own theory for a long time, so there's ego involved, there's money involved. They've been investing all their career into this, so they will never admit that there's something else that's really beyond what they've been working on. So
Yeah,
it's
because
just
the prime example was this Nobel Prize guy. When he said, "Well, this guy looks like a nutcase," and I said, "Well, that's kind of strange, isn't that what they said about you when you said you were involved in ESP?" And I think at Cambridge, he wasn't allowed to work with graduate students anymore, and he was pulled out of conferences and stuff. And this guy's a Nobel Prize winner, and you can see that it doesn't matter how high you are up in the scientific establishment. If you say something that violates everybody's ability to rent grants and make money and stuff like that, they throw you out.
Oh yeah, totally. And let me just show you something just briefly as the last slide here, because it ties into that discussion actually. I have one here, so I don't know if you can see it. So the this one. So
Okay.
I have so what we see to the left side here is all of the main physics constants that we, or physics. The second and third columns are the actual standard values of these, the values and the units that of these standards constants. So this is mainstream science, essentially. What's the first three columns to the left. The last two columns, what I call geometric harmonic values, and the units, or the conversion of these constants into the geometric harmonic figures I've been talking about, and their units. So to me, that slide alone is an entirely new physics. It's a new science, a new physics.
Yeah.
Because I essentially turn these regular physics constants into something that's tied to geometry and how we see the universe works. And I will be happy to debate any physicist on this, because this is mathematical. I can defend this in a very accurate way. So any of these gentlemen who thinks that this, maybe blah blah, woo woo, this is real. I mean, this is mathematical. So when again, this is not speculation. This is real. And at some point, as you said, hopefully, I think it's just a matter of evolution, right? As our consciousness.
Yeah, it's right. It's not I mean, if we were in the same position, we'd probably do the same thing. I mean, it's just the way the world has sort of unfolded. And the Fine-Structure constant, I don't know if people know. I mean, I always say that because of these bizarre Fine-Structure constants that all the constants that all sort of match, and the universe wouldn't unfold if it was out by one millionth of a percent and all this kind of stuff. That's where the whole multiple universe came from. It's sort of like they jack around with the mathematics, say, well, there's unlimited numbers of universes, and this is the only one that worked. That's the only way they could sort of bypass. I think even Stephen Hawking said that was one of the things when he saw all the constants that really made him wonder whether there was a God. So
exactly.
It's incredible stuff on the leading edge that to me, it just makes the universe look like a more magnificent place all the time in terms of the complexity, that the more you look at it, the more there's always this thing. Remember the thing about the what to call it, the gap of the gods, that the only reason that we still had a god was there's little tiny gaps, and the gaps are getting smaller. Well, the gaps aren't getting smaller, they're getting bigger and bigger and bigger. The more you look at it, the more complex it gets and the more questions you have. And you're filling in some of the gaps in terms of how it all fits together. But it just you realize the universe is very finely tuned, but very, very complex.
Yeah, exactly. It starts with the unity, the one, right, which divides itself and gives birth to this beautiful complexity, variety, I will say, in our universe. Fundamentally, it can be simple, right? It can be simplified to a few building blocks, right? These harmonics of creation, but gives birth to this variety of things that we see, this complexity of life, and it's beautiful. So, to me, it all fits in. It's so just fits in mathematically and explains our mythology in many ways as well. What we've been seeing in ancient sacred sites, and it's all coming together. And I think it's probably why this information is coming out now, because it's time, right, for this information to come out. We live in venture because, we know that time doesn't exist. Time is an illusion. It's been proven. The physics Nobel Prize of 2022, I believe it was, they demonstrated, right, that it was a team. They demonstrated that, time and space are just essentially illusion, right? It's just there's no locality, there's no objective reality to time and space. And so if that is the case, right, and it is the case, it's proven to be in a laboratory, really various experiments, then we can say maybe that all these sightings we're talking about and the signs, even the video from Linda, was there to communicate this information that's available now, right? And so again, there's no now, but they're giving us the answers, right? And it's just for us to get that degree of consciousness to understand and apply it, right? And so I think the new world, a new reality that is emerging right now will incorporate that, right? That will be this new science, new understanding of the universe, will give birth to free energy. You know, space travel, traveling the stars will open the door to all these things, and it's time for this knowledge to come out again and come out now.
And we get help. I mean, I'm just doing research on a woman who is a professor at she was a marine biologist and then turned out she went into plant she's done 60 papers on plant communication and how they will follow magnetic fields, and when you drop them, the first time the plant will react, but the second time you drop it, it won't react because it realizes it's not a threat and stuff like that, and just leading edge stuff. And she talks about the fact where it was a bizarre paranormal event that happened with fish who she's working with, that when she went to capture them all, she'd work with them, and she could actually put her hand around them, and they'd come right to her, and she could put her hand around them. And the day she went in to pick them up to kill them all, to look at all the insides, how the experiment had affected, they were all hiding in the reef in Australia. They wouldn't come out. And so she left. She basically shut down, and she went into plants. And she said it just happened when the plants started talking to her, partially started talking to her, and they said, "This is what you got to do." And they explained how to set up the experiment and stuff. So what if you had an event, what would be the event that you had, like in terms of getting sort of help, in terms of, you had the thing with the stars that linked up that one time on your antenna. Have you had a lot of these events that, I think you talk about this, that you're on a plane and the stuff is just coming to you as if somebody's feeding you this material and saying, okay, go here next, go here next, go here next?
Yeah, well, really, it's starting. You know, the first years of my experiences were more contact related, right? From 2017, 2021, I will say we're very focused on C5 and making contact and having interactions with non-human
With the
intelligence,
radios, well, that
right,
radio stuff, yeah.
that's right, radio interaction. So I recorded, I have a lot of video recordings of these manifestations and so on. And then in 2021, when I moved to Arizona, close to Sedona, actually.
Off of exit, what number?
144. Right, that's right. So that's all these synchronicities came together, and actually even discovered, which is fascinating, that the on the Earth grid, right, we calculate the vortex essentially on the Earth grid based on the North Pole, the distance between the North Pole and the location, right? So for instance, we know Sedona is known to be a vortex of energy.
Yeah.
And so if you calculate the distance between the North Pole and the Sedona, you get, exactly a harmonic 144, 23rd harmonic to the dot, right?
Yeah.
And so it was interesting. I found out that when I calculate the distance between the North Pole and my antenna system, my home, I get exactly the same number.
Wow.
One other, synchronicity. But when I moved there, this is where all this information started, coming together. It feels in some way, again, I don't know if it's being communicated, if it's information maybe I knew and it's coming back to memory. But it just comes, right? And just in various ways from various topics. If we look at what we talked about today, we talked about alignment of planets, the correlation to, the Carrington event, solar storm, the Metatron's cube, sacred geometry. We talked about the Great Pyramid, the physics of black holes, and then the information encoded in the, Renaissance forest, glyphs. And so just a ton of information from various topics essentially coming to me. And I don't need to make any efforts, to be honest, to research. I don't spend my days and hours researching stuff. The information is there, and I just confirm it, do some calculation, and I confirm it, create the slides, and then I just share the slides. So it's been easy in that sense, and I'm very thankful that this information is coming as an inspiration, if you will, and keeps going. And it's just for me to, to have the free time to do it. And I try to do my best to, to share as much as I can and produce as much as I can, but it's still coming in. So we'll see what that leads to,
Yeah. Well, Cindy and I will do what we can to push it out there. as I said, I'm going to put it through some AI stuff, and because I've learned quite a bit how to work it and who to talk to, which system to talk to, and stuff like that, and see what pops up there, and try to get the word out because it's an important. And in the end, it doesn't really matter if we get it today or tomorrow or whatever, because this whole concept, there's no time, and the consciousness has to be right. But it's the idea that if your and my consciousness is up there and we don't put out the message, then we got a problem. We have to do what we can. It's like we can't say we didn't know or we forgot, or we sort of know this is important, and so I'll help you however I can to get the message out, because I think you're on the leading edge of very important discovery in terms of how it all fits together. And I've always believed that in the last, say, 12 years, this idea how about it's all going to fit together exactly like if you know how it works. It's almost like Einstein said, it's all going to be a very simple equation that's going to explain everything. It all fits together. It's not random that it's happening. It's all very patterned, and it's the matter of having people figure out the pattern. And you're doing a very good job at it.
Well, thank you, Glenn. As always, to me, it's again, I feel a strong sense of mission of sharing the information
Yeah,
that comes to me. I
yeah,
put time to try to create pictures and videos to make it as understandable as possible. It's a mixture of, different things, mathematics, but pictures, something people can
yeah,
visualize. But at the end of the day, I feel strongly the information is really important. It all works out mathematically perfectly
yeah.
well. It explains a lot of different, you know, mysteries and things that are still unknown in our science. And so I feel a strong sense of duty to share the information. I'm very thankful that you provide that platform for us to share that information and
Wow.
Cindy's help. And so again, I cannot thank you enough for that.
Beautiful. Okay, so next time you've got something, even a small thing to add on, and I'll let you know where I get with putting this out, and because I've got a lot of different platforms going now where you start to even like my thing, where you start to learn, people's attention span, and you start cutting it down. Now AI has this thing where you can actually, it'll make you a 7-minute video, and it'll make you a 15-minute. You just put all your data on the one side. Notebook, I don't know if you've used it, but put all your data on the one side, and it'll produce a 15-minute audio and a 7-minute video in like 3 minutes, and that's where you can put your stuff in there, and it'll actually sort of explain it. I've done it with a lot of my stuff where I go, holy cow, that's way better than I could ever explain it. It's they can sort of know how to fit it together, and even people like Gary Nolan are using it to write their proposals for grants. That it's an amazing sort of world that we live in terms of and you probably have the same thing. And to me, the material's coming so fast, you just you can't sort it out. I mean, it's just unbelievable.
Oh yeah, the AI is just amazing. I use AI extensively now as well, right? It's
Yeah,
I think it's necessary for us to learn how it works and utilize the tool because that's the future, right? We're going to be like illiterate if we don't if we don't know how it works, right? And so it's important to get on board, to get on the boat.
yeah,
And it helps saving time, as you said. I mean, you can save a ton of time. It can be more productive. It's a big help. So yeah, I use AI, and it's a wonderful. It's a big help in my work as well. So I'm glad to hear that you're using it as well. It's just magical. It's really
yeah.
magical.
It's almost like a way to learn where there's trying to tone kids down, but in terms of learning things, I mean you just put a question in there, and then it gives you an answer, and then it gives you another question, you ask a question, and it answers that, and it may not be 100% question, but inspiring people to sit on there all day, but they're learning stuff as they're going through. They're asking questions, ask this question, ask, whereas you would never, a kid go to a library and look up a book or something. They'd never do that anymore. It's just it's almost like the Akashic record idea
Yeah.
that everything is put on in the Akashic record, and here it's all the consciousnesses are putting their stuff on a cloud, and you're able to access as much as people know on today's value, and that as we go along, people are adding more and more material to it, and so it's almost like a reflection of nature itself, or whoever's running the show.
That's exactly right. I mean, if you look at it, like all the AI now that's active on the planet, they are gathering the information from the
Yeah,
humanity's mass consciousness,
yeah, yeah.
which is being stored right in its AI. And so it's a bigger picture than we think. Really, it's really, as you said, a mirror of the humanity's mass consciousness. It's just going to keep evolving this way. We can just imagine what extraterrestrial civilizations where they are at with this type of thing, right? I mean,
Mhm.
again,
Mhm.
now this opens the door when we people see craft, it doesn't mean there's a little green man in there, right? And maybe just totally powered by AI, and it's just who knows, right? I mean, so it's just opens the door to different thinking about this whole thing, you know.
Yeah, and that's the idea, like that you have experiencers with the free survey that said 40% of all people who were experiencers with non-human intelligence said at one point during their experience they were shown the answer to everything in the universe, which sort of is the idea where everything is there, and it's they're not going to give you the answer because they need you and me and people like this to figure it out. And until you figure it out, it doesn't mean anything. You've got to do the work. So the answer is there, and you're just getting little pieces in, chipping this piece off and that piece off, and the understanding that everything is going to be there. It's all going to make sense, and that just keeps you going in terms of finding something new and finding, and you get the inspiration from your higher self or whatever that directs you into this and that. And because you've done a lot of discovery in the last 4 years. I can't believe it's only been 4 years since you started this mathematical stuff. I mean, it's just incredible the number of things you've discovered in that time, how, everything fits together. It's just incredible. It's almost like almost like a textbook to describe all the stuff that you found.
Yeah, it's I'm always surprised too, the amount of material that came through. I have 2,000, or I'm getting to 3,000 slides very soon of material. So what we're seeing on these interviews is just like we're scratching the surface. There's way more behind this, but I just cannot possibly go through all this. There's so much stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's wonderful. I'm very excited about the future.
Thanks for allowing me to share it. I'm honored to be sort of on the leading edge of this this discovery. First time I saw it, I just went, wow. It's like, holy cow, this guy's onto something here. And it's been proven right that you are onto something very, very significant in terms of when you get, 5 of them and they all line up, and the stuff like that. It's just incredible. Cindy, have you got anything to say?
I do. So Jimmy, can you explain to us when you started to get all this information coming to you several years ago? Is it coming in like a download, or are you seeing it in your mind's eye, or is it a knowing?
Or it's a knowing. It's a knowing. It's like as if I knew already, or it's just like ideas, right? When we have inspiration about things, if you will, the idea is very clear, and the idea comes, and then I kind of, often it's mathematical. So I take my calculator, I do some, confirmation, it works out well, right? So I kind of validate the information that comes to me. So, but it's kind of knowing, yeah, it's knowing. So that's why I'm not sure if it's a remembrance or information being communicated separately, or mixture of both. I think it's probably a mixture of different.
I mean, I tend to feel that, like somebody, music genius, a child that's born at 5 years old, able to play very complex compilation of music. Like you, I feel like you must have incarnated elsewhere, and you chose to come in this time frame to raise consciousness through math, through geometry, through these very, someone like me who has no mathematical background, it's not something that I can grasp easily. So I think that in your lineage, soul lineage, you must have done this before, or from another star system, incarnated here onto Earth in specific time period, because it's needed at this junction for this type of validation of just how precise and how the universe is so perfectly orchestrated.
Yeah, at some point I'd like to maybe to get under hypnosis, or just to see, what I can learn, using hypnosis. Yeah,
Have you had regressions before?
No, I've not tried it.
I was just going to suggest that. Remember, Jimmy, I asked you when you were born, because I'm thinking like Wilbur Smith. When Wilbur Smith died, I'm thinking, I wonder if this is Wilbur Smith coming back here. But the date didn't really figure out.
Yeah. And the thing is, we often talk about time, right? And that's our paradigm that we live in. But knowing that time doesn't exist, right? There's
Yeah.
no such a thing as a past life, actually. What
Yeah.
there are actual synchronistic life that are happening simultaneously at the same time, the here and now.
Yeah.
We live on different planes of existence, and so we have a connection. You know, a part of maybe Grant Cameron is, you know, a spark of Grant Cameron is in the Pleiades and as an ED, you know, flying a ship right now, right? And so we live on different planes of existence in the now moment. And so I think there's some resonance of these different existence that we live in, that we're connected to, that maybe connect to what we do. Like now, we say now because we have to use time in the world we live in, but so it's a bit of different thinking when we look at it this way. There's also maybe also the fact that, you know, I've been broadcasting messages throughout the solar system, hundreds of them for many years now. So, you know, whoever picked these messages up and, you know, maybe decided to interact, I mean, who knows?
The aliens said, hey, we got a live one here.
Well, I'm actually hoping when I come out to Arizona, so I'm going to be out there October 27th through the 30th. I'm hoping to connect Britt Elders and Jimmy together. So I'm still waiting to hear back from her as to which day she's available, so that I can put the three of us together.
Yeah, well, that'll be exciting. Yeah, it's like, and that's the thing is that's what ufology is all about, is people linking minds. And that's the advantage we got today, is we got the internet, where in the old days, Jimmy and I would have to send letters back and forth and wait for 2 weeks between letters and stuff like that. Whereas now everything's happening at the speed of light.
That's right.
Well, imagine if when this planet has no more deceit, everybody's honest.
And we're getting there too, with the kids, the telepathic kids. I mean, we're almost there.
The telepathy kids, telepathy tape.
Exactly.
Yeah. Fascinating.
Beautiful.
Well, thank you, Grant. Thank you, Cindy, again for the opportunity.
Thank you.
We'll be in touch.
Let's stay in touch. I will let you know what I come up with, and you keep me in touch, especially when your textbook comes out. Then we'll really get to it.
Sounds great. All right.
Okay. Thanks,
Thank
Jimmy.
you so much. Bye-bye.
All right. So, let me see, hit recording, where is stop recording? Okay. This will be converted when meeting ends. Okay, so,